So, okay, welcome back. So, we'll get to the fourth module for this particular week, which is the week 1. And so far, we have been I talked about brief, like a discussion on the sustainability aspect, introduced you to the concept of life cycle analysis. And we said that life cycle analysis is essentially focused on environmental stuff. And so what really we are worried about in terms of the environmental issues. So in this particular module, we'll try to introduce ourselves to, okay, in terms of environment, what? So when we say environment or the environmental continuum, as you see in many of the lectures or environment, when we say, it's essentially what we are talking about. We are talking about air, we are talking about land, we are talking about water. So is air, land and water is what is essentially your environmental aspect. That's why if you have taken a course on environmental engineering or environmental science, you see that water treatment, wastewater treatment, solid waste management, hazardous waste management, air pollution, all these are taking care of these three aspects of the environment: air, water, land. And our life is dependent on that. When I say our, it's not only like a life of you and me, it also lives of all the flora and fauna, ecosystem, plants, animals, all the species around us. So there is a impact of environment, as if you are watching news these days, or if you are following up on the environmental issues, we see lots and lots of newer kind of disease coming up. People are getting all sorts of disease at a very young age. Even some birth defects are coming up, and researchers have linked these to the environmental factors. If you are familiar with Punjab area, which is in our country, in India, in Bhatinda area, there is an area which is known as the cancer cluster. So this cancer cluster of Bhatinda is very much it's on because of a lot of uses of pesticides and fertilizers in the cotton growing industry. We are having a lot of cancer being produced. So when we say about environment, we are looking at the ecosystem, and this ecosystem is, you must have seen this picture in your science book, maybe in the primary school itself. So everything on the earth is connected. There are living things and the non-living things. We depend on each other, we affect each other. Water, air, atmospheric conditions, plants, animals, soils, all are interlinked, as you can see in this picture. And I don't have to explain this to you. You must have seen this so many times in your life so far in terms of different kind of books related to that. So now the broader concept that we look at these days is the concept of this water, food, energy and environment. You will hear this term water, energy, environment, food nexus. All these four are connected. So in next 25 some minutes in this module, and then the module after this, we'll try to understand this nexus. What is this nexus is all about? How they are related, and what are the stresses of these four that are being faced today? We need water. Water is essential for good environment. We cannot have good environment without good water. We need water to produce energy, which I will show you in some of the slides. In coal-fired thermal power plant or any sorts of energy generation uses a lots and lots of water. We need energy to produce food, and at the same time we need water to produce food as well. And we need good food for, of course, good like our health depends on good food. So all these are related. So let's look at the first aspect, the environmental, health and water, how these are interrelated to each other. Water has a big impact on health. Disease from dirty water and lack of basic sanitation, they actually kill more people every year than all the forms of violence, including war and other stuff. So disease from the dirty water and lack of basic sanitation, that's why you hear a lot of focus on these days on Swachh Bharat mission in India. We are in the Swachh Bharat mission, we are working on the sanitation part, but we still have to do a lot of work in terms of improving the water quality system in the country. So that's again a big problem we have. So in terms of water and health, 80% of the disease in developing countries are due to lack of access to clean potable water. Think about that. And pathogens gets transmitted through water. It kills 25 million people every year by amoeba-linked diarrhea, cholera and typhoid. Can you think about it? It's a 25 million people dying every year but since it doesn't make a lot of news because disease doesn't happen on one particular day. It happens over the course of the year at different parts of the world, so we don't hear about that too much. But it kills the pathogens transmitted through water. It kills 25 million people every year. Nearly 4,000 children die every day because of the lack of water. So this data, some of this data is old. Things may have improved a little bit, but still that's lots and lots of work is being done. 90% of the 2.2 million deaths of children under 5 is because of lack of clean water. Most effective management intervention would be providing safe drinking water and proper disposal of human waste. So we are talking about the sewage, which makes into all those stuff. Each year, more than 5 million people die from water-related disease. A child is dying every 15 seconds because of the water-related disease in the world. 30% of the water-related deaths are due to diarrhea. 84% of the water-related deaths are in children aged 0 to 14 years. 98% of the water-related deaths occur in the developing world. So after going through this data, I don't think I need to stress upon more that we need to prevent our water resource. We need to make sure that our water is clean. We have a good access to the clean drinking water to each and everyone on the planet. So that's very, very important. Water is one of the most important thing that we need is water. We cannot really survive without water. And and we need water for all our industrial activities. If we don't have clean water, we'll have a lot of disease, people will get sick, and you cannot have a healthy economy with an unhealthy workforce. So if you really want to have a good GDP numbers, as we are trying to achieve, and so to have a good GDP numbers, you need to have a healthy workforce too. And for most of the industries, you need good potable water anyway. So water is one area which needs a lot of focus. Unfortunately, sometimes we kind of get into the debate that what is our priorities. So if you think about today, sometimes it feels like are we really putting our resources in the right area? Many of the railway stations in our country, in India, are coming up with this Wi-Fi. But most of those railway stations where this Wi-Fi is being set up doesn't have clean access, clean water, where water which I can go and open the tap and drink. So the question is, do we really need clean water first, or we need this Wi-Fi first? Wi-Fi can wait. Clean water should be done in a war footing, and that's needed throughout the country and of course throughout the world as well. So that's kind of just to stress upon you that how the water is important. Now, if you look at the water use, withdrawal, and requirement, where the water is used, the domestic sector, where in our houses, the commercial sector uses a lot of water. Irrigation, that's again in country like India, we use lots of water in irrigation. Energy, livestock, if you want to have either your animal protein or the milk and all those stuff you need to grow, they need water. Hydroelectric dams need water. Mining activities needs water. Industries need water. To produce energy, you need water. So we have lots and lots of demand for water from all these different sectors. And how it is used up. If you look at 81% of the water actually goes up in irrigation itself. So 81% of the water goes up into irrigation. Then comes the domestic sector, which is 7%. Your industrial and thermo-industrial is 3%, so as thermoelectric plants. Mining is 2%, mining is 1%, and other commercial is 1%. So as you can see, water demand, most of the water demand is in irrigation, and most of the water wastage is also in irrigation. So if you look at the worldwide water withdrawal, how the water is being used around the world, and as you see from Asia, North America, Europe, and Latin America, these four, in Asia you see more and more water being used in the irrigation sector. As you go to the developed economies like in North America and Europe, you see less water being used, like 48% and 53%. So in North America and Europe, you have less water being used in in agriculture as in irrigation, as opposed to what you see in Asia and Latin America. Some of these is that because of the North America and Europe is a industrial economy. There's a lot of industries are there. But at the same time, some of the aspect is there, they have cut down on their losses. They have come up with an efficient irrigation system as well. So we need to build efficient irrigation system in Asia and Latin America and Africa and those countries too. You can see Africa, Oceania and Caribbeans, which is very similar to what we see in Asia or in Latin America. So agriculture dominates throughout the world. Agriculture dominates, and as you can, as opposed to North America and Europe, where industry sources dominates, 53% and 48% goes in industry. Other than North America and Europe, other countries, it's the irrigation, it's the agriculture which dominates the water demand, and then the rest you have the water demand from the domestic sector varies from place to place. Industry is a major consumer in North America, and they also have more efficient irrigation system. Africa, Asia, and Latin America, it's still agricultural economy. Irrigation system not always efficient. We are having a lot of losses, and there are booming economies in terms of China, India, and Brazil, which will actually influence this ratio in coming years. So if you look at the increasing withdrawals, about how the water is being withdrawn, and if you water use at the end of like if you look at the water that is being withdrawn over last few decades in North America, Europe, Asia, and Asia, you see lots and lots of water being taken out. That's the kilometer of cube per year, how much water is being withdrawn. So Asia, because of the huge population, we are taking out lots and lots of water is being taken out, and there is a lot of loss of water in Asia too. And most, if you look at the water like a demand in Asia, water demand is going up. We are using lots and lots of water, but still we are far behind that what is being used in the developing countries. In American country, for example, like theoretically, or maybe say by some research, it has been shown that a person needs around 4 to 5 gallons of water per day. When we say 5 gallons, it's 1 gallon is 3.78 liters. For our calculation purpose, even if we say assume 4 liters, so we are talking about around 20 liters of water per day. So we need around 20 liters of water per day to survive. And an average American individual uses 100 to 176 gallons. So that's a lot of water they use at home each day. Average African family, they uses around 5 gallons of water each day. So Middle Eastern and North African countries are in absolute water scarcity situation. Kuwait has the least per capita water availability, and it's going to maybe go down to 5 meter cube of water in 2025 per capita per person. But Kuwait has the highest per capita water consumption because they are able to import water. They are using 200 liters of water per person per day in the 1980s. Currently, they are having 500 liters per person per day. So, they are using lots and lots of water, and they can afford to. It's an oil economy, they can afford. So, they are bringing water from the other countries. In terms of the water usage, and here the water consumption includes everything, not only the domestic use, industrial use, all sorts of usage are being added. That's why you see Australia being on the top, and this is per capita per person, although Australia has a very low population, but the per capita usage of water is very high in Australia because of lots of mining happening in Australia today. So because of the lots of mining happening, you see for our you see the water usage is very high because water mining uses a lot of water. US is on the second position. India is slightly below the world average. The world average is right there, which is around 320, 330 cubic meters per capita water consumption. In India, we are slightly below the world average. We are below the 300 mark. Germany is even less than us because Germany, they are probably not in terms of their domestic usage, they might be using more water than us, but they are more efficient. They are able to more efficient system, less like leaks, and they can manage their water more effectively. In terms of the major world is urbanizing. By 2050, 70% of the world population will live in urban areas. In India also you see more and more urban growth. So in developing countries, cities are growing by 5 million residents every month. There are a lot of slums being expanded. Infrastructure is not able to keep up with the pace of expansion, and that becomes because of that leads to lack of access of water and adequate sanitation, and that leads to a lot of problem in terms of the environmental health issues and human health issues as well. Some example: Mexico City, over 21 million people in the metropolitan area. So lot of people over there. Domestic water use is up to 364 liters per person per day, the very high usage as well. Buenos Aires, Argentina, 12 million people in the metropolitan area, and they also use around 375 to 400 liters per person per day. Shanghai, very high usage, 410, 411 liters per person per day, 23 million people. New Delhi, not far behind, 20 million people, but in terms of the water usage is much, yes, 78 liters per person per day. But then again, the data from the New Delhi, we need to be a little bit careful, because people may have their own groundwater wells as well, and they may be extracting the water which does not show up in this particular data. So water is needed. Water is needed say if you in all sorts of stuff, water is needed. So we'll start from the agricultural sector. So because the water is needed to grow crops, so if you look at the average water needs to grow crops, in this is in cubic meters per 1,000 tons. In US, for example, the top one is US, then we have China, then we have India, and then Brazil, the top. So in terms of the growing rice, as you can see, compared to India and Brazil, US and China uses much less water requirement over there, because they are using the variety of rice which can grow even with less water. Same thing for the wheat and soybean, or for example maize. So they have much less water footprint. What you see over here, this is the water footprint per 1,000 tons of these type of crops. So in developed countries, in US and to some extent in China now as well, they have come up with a better variety of seed which uses much less water and produces this food for us. So whatever is the water is inside these food items, they are known as the virtual water, because the water is embedded in the food products. So when we say food is wasted, when the food is wasted, water is also wasted. So water embedded in food products, 1,000 liters for 1 kg of grains. Sometimes in an average, for 1 kg of grain, you need 1,000 liters of water. But if you are a beef or a meat eater, it becomes 15,500 liters for 1 kg of beef. So that's why people say that if you want to prevent the environment damage, if you are environmental friendly, you should not go for like a non-veg or those kind of stuff. Meaty American and European diets, 5,000 liters of water per day. So to make the food on the table, it doesn't take into account all the water that you drink. 5,000 liters of water per day is consumed to get the food that the meaty American and European diets have. If you have a vegetarian, African and Asian diet, you are around 2,000 liters of water per day. So 2,000 liters of water is used, so much less. So if the whole world change into vegetarian, there will be other consequences of that. But in terms of the water footprint, it will be a better thing to do. But as you know, the world is growing. Some of these countries like India, China, and other places, they are becoming wealthier. People are becoming more wealthier. So one sign of getting wealthier is they change their food pattern, and the food pattern is more and more meats gets added to the food item. So meat consumption in China has gone up 2.5 times from 1985 to 2009. So over the course of 24 years, it has become 2.5 times. Earlier it used to be 20 kg per year per person. Now it is 50 kg per year per person. So that leads to around 390 kilometer cube of extra water requirement, and that is equivalent to the total water used in Europe. So think about that. So that's a shift in dietary habit is also impossible to reverse. So there's a more and more water requirement will be there in China. The bottom sketch that you see over here, where you see lots of water droplets, these are the water that is required. The bigger the droplet, more is the water footprint. And we are going from 1 kilo of wheat at the end to 1 kilo of coffee at on my left, which is the biggest bubble. So 1 kilo wheat requires 1,000 liters. Then milk requires 2,000. Sugar is 3,000. Rice is 5,000. Cheese 5,000 again. Cotton T-shirt 7,000 liters. To make one cotton T-shirt, you spend 7,000 liters. 1 quarter-pound hamburger 11,000 liters. And 1 kg of coffee, 20,000 a liter. So if you are a coffee drinker as opposed to tea drinker, you are having a bigger water footprint. As you can know, you can actually calculate your water footprint for your daily requirement. say if you similar things on the next graph, which is again if you look at the different food that is being produced from left to right, as we move from left to right, left being the lowest water footprint, as we go into the right we see a higher and higher water footprint. That's why all the footprint signs that you see at the in the middle, bigger the food size, bigger is the of course the bigger is the water footprint. So the lowest water footprint is for the forage and silage, but then we have sugarcane, potato, cassava, which is a big food in African country, maize, oil palm, wheat, barley, rapeseed, soybean, rice, plantain, coconut, sorghum, sunflower seed, then cotton, olives, natural rubber, cocoa beans, coffee, millets, beans, groundnuts, and sorghum. So these are, as we go on the left, my left hand side, on the left hand side of this graph, you see the bigger and bigger footprint. So that's why if you think about the area on this side, is those are the products which we produce a more. So if you look at this this particular graph, which is the second from the bottom, those tells you the global crop production. This is a million tons per year, and the bottom one, which is the blue bars, they show you the global water consumption with a million meter cubes per year. So as you can see, we produce more of the material which has a lesser carbon, lesser water footprint, as opposed to the material which has more water footprint. The cocoa bean, which goes into your coffee sometimes, like a cocoa, and also to your the chocolates, it has a very big water footprint. So if you love chocolates, actually you have a bigger water footprint as well. So these are some of, so but why I have these slides over there? It is basically to stress upon that water, good clean drinking water is needed. If we don't have that, we cannot really produce anything. So to produce good food, to have a good energy, water is needed. And when there is a lot of, as you can see from the last few slides, food waste would be a water waste too, because many of these food items have embedded energy. So embedded water. So when you use this, when you waste this food, your water is wasted as well. So if in terms of the developing countries, if you compare the situation in developing countries with the situation in US, for example, there are the two graphs over here. The top one shows you for the developing countries, the bottom one is for the US. The blue is for on farm what is like a lost. Then the red tells us the home and municipal, and the last one, the gray, tells us which is like a summary of other three, like a transport, processing, food service, and retail. So in developing countries, we are seeing more and more damage in on farm in terms of the storage on farm, in terms of the food being wasted because it cannot be transported in time, cannot be taken to a transport system on time, doesn't get processed quickly. So because of the lack of efficient collection of these food items and transportation of these food items, as well as the storage of the food items, we don't have the refrigeration system in place in many parts of the country. So that leads to damage of a lot of food. And when food is wasted, as you saw from the earlier slide, water is wasted as well. So that's later we see a lot of damage, a lot of things happening in the farm. Then we see some in terms of the home and municipal, transport and processing. That's another area where you see the damage as well, like transport and processing area, where things gets delayed. That's and at the end you have your some other factors comes in picture over there. In terms of, if you go to the developed countries like in US, you don't see much damage being happen in the farm. Things are efficient, they gets collected. There are some damage in the transport and processing. There are some into the retail sector, some in the food services sector, but you see a big chunk of food being wasted in from the houses. So that's a big problem in a country like US or in many of the developed countries. There have been some studies done which shows that almost 1,000 pounds of $1,000, 1,000 US dollars worth of food get wasted per year. So if you think about a family of four, 1,000 US dollars is a lot of money. That can easily buy 4 good Christmas gifts, each worth of $250. You can buy a good mini laptop these days, mini iPad or pads. in those money for that. So food loss, per capita food loss, as you can see, the consumer, the blue one, the black part of the these columns are lost in the consumer side, and the blue color, light blue color, is from the production to retailing side. As you move from developed countries to the developing countries, you see that bar keeps on changing. And if you are in Asia, for example, industrialized Asia, you see less lost in consumer side, more in production to retailing. So North America and Oceania, again you see a big on production to retailing, and consumer is wasting as well. And but the proportion of these keeps on changing as you move from one place to another. In South and Southwest, it's the production or retailing, which our country will belong to this particular pie chart. We see a lot of damage in the production and retailing side than as opposed to the consumer one, which is your maroon in color. The bottom one is the light blue color. So with that, like if you think about what we have covered, just if you can summarize that, what we looked at in this particular module is essentially the role of water. We introduced ourselves to what is an environment. We looked at the air, land, and water issues, and with the air, land, and water issues, we have focused on the water side. There is a water demand. Water is needed for each and every activity. From the morning we get up to the evening till we go to the bed, we consume water throughout the day, direct as well as indirect. You saw that most of the food items, almost all the food items have embedded water there. So, and it's some food items we actually end up using more water as opposed to some other food items. So we are consuming those food items, we are consuming water. So that's that needs to be taken into account. Again, water, what we said is water is very important. We need to access to good clean water for drinking purposes. We need good potable water for our industrial processes. If we don't have access to good water, if our water is contaminated, we'll have issues of health issues, environmental issues. If you don't have health, if you have health problem in your workforce, if you don't have your healthy workforce, you cannot have healthy economy. So to have a healthy economy, healthy workforce is needed. So have a good clean water is very much essential, and that's needed for all sorts of industry. In the next module, I will also show you how it is related to the energy sector. So with that, we'll wrap up this particular module, and now we'll have another module left for this particular week, and then we'll have as you probably know, for every week you will have a quiz, and so do keep revising these material, and you will have access to the PDF version of the slides as well. So listen to the video, look at the PDF version of the slides, and so that you can do well in all those quizzes, like a weekly quizzes, which will be given to you at the end of the week. So thank you.